A warm good morning to one and all. Welcome to the Smart Bridge webinar series. It's been a while we've done this, so I'm more than happy to conduct and host this webinar, which is LPWA and Communication in Industrial IoT and Applications in Water Sector, conducted by Space Age Labs. And we have a very interesting panelist from Space Age Labs. I'm sure you are more than excited to know a lot in this region. Before kickstarting with the webinar, let's get to know our panelists. Without any delay, I would like to introduce you to our key panelists. Mr. Deepak Pitta, CEO of Space Labs, has a background in instrumentation and control systems and has years of experience working in oil and gas industry before founding Space Labs. He also conducts hands-on introductory course on IoT, which is accredited under Skills Future Grant. Next, we have Mr. Anand Subba, CTO, Space Labs. He has more than 13 years of experience in developing wireless products in companies like Honeywell, etc. Currently, he is the chief architect for the IoT hardware and software solution developed by Space Labs. He's also an adjunct lecturer at National University of Singapore, teaching executive course at Institute of System Sciences on IoT cybersecurity. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Leela Krishna, CBO, Chief Business Officer at Space Labs. He has more than 11 years of experience managing water resources at Public Utilities Board through roles in different departments like water reclamation, water supply, and technology deployment. He also has experience in conducting training as part of his work during PUB days, and currently he conducts part-time training for the water industry. So guys, please give them a warm welcome, and I now hand over the session to Mr. Deepak Pitta. Have a great session, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Vishnu. You can hear me, right, guys? Maybe someone give me a feedback.
Yes, all good to go.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for that quick introduction. So maybe I'll do our introduction as well. So Space Age Labs is a Singapore-based company. We started this in 2016, and our focus is in Internet of Things, specifically industrial Internet of Things, and within that in low power wide area networks, and that is going to be the topic of discussion today, low power WAN. But maybe before we get into that, I like to introduce myself a little bit. Anant and Leela will introduce themselves when they speak later on in the session. So I've been in Singapore for the last 16 years. Before that, I did my high school in India, and then I moved here. I went to NTU and NUS, did my bachelor's in engineering in electronics and mechanical. I used to work in robotics, but then I moved into the oil and gas industry and worked with sensors, instrumentation, control systems for a while with a company called KBR. And then in 2016, I started this company with my friends who you see on the screen. When we started the company, the vision was to bring cutting edge technology to industries like oil and gas or water or manufacturing, where even today it is very old fashioned. Adoption of new technology is very slow. And we felt that we could contribute in that sector. So we started the company in 2016 in Singapore. Currently, we have an office in Singapore, which is our headquarters, and a small engineering office in Hyderabad. We are a full stack company, which means we do everything from hardware to software. So we have an engineering team which comprises of electronics engineers, firmware engineers, mechanical engineers, software engineers, and even data scientists and machine learning experts. So we kind of do the end-to-end engineering of IoT products. And we'll discuss that in a while. This is just a snapshot of who our key customers are and what we have achieved over the last few years. So as you can see, most of our customers are primarily big government companies or private sector multinational companies. Till date, we have primarily worked in Singapore and the nearby countries, but we are looking to now expand beyond that into maybe India, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries in the Asia Pacific region. Right? We are closely affiliated to National University of Singapore. We came out of the incubator at NUS, and then now we are growing
Hello. Okay.
What we are going to speak today, there will be 3 speakers. So I will start with a basic introduction to Internet of Things and low power wide area networks. And Anant will talk a little bit more about engineering and cybersecurity. And Leela will talk about applications in water. All right. So maybe let me get started. So I think the first thing to understand is what exactly is Internet of Things, right? And the second question is, why is it important? I'm sure all of you have some idea or thought behind what it might be. So maybe let me give you my simple explanation of what IoT is. This is a very simplified view of what IoT is. So IoT is Internet of Things. So there has to be things, there has to be internet, right? So the bottom layer which you see is the things, and the green and the blue boxes are the internet, right? So the things can be 2 type of things. It could be a sensor device, or it could be something you can control, right? So a sensor could be something like a temperature sensor.
Deepak, the screen is
something
not
you
changing.
control, an example would be a fan or a motor or something which you can move or do action with.
Hello.
Now your smartphone is actually both a sensor and actuator in that sense, because it can sense things like your touch, but it can also vibrate, it can generate sound, so you can act on it as well. So I think smartphone is the most popular IoT device in the world. Then coming to the internet part, there are 2 parts to it primarily. One is the network part, so the communication medium through which data goes from the device to something called the cloud, right? So networks, you might be familiar with Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G in your daily use, but there are many other networking technologies which are used in IoT and industrial IoT specifically, and we'll speak about that. But broadly, there are wired communications and wireless communications, and today's discussion will center around more of wireless technologies. But having said that, there are also wired communication technologies which are very popular. From the network, the data usually goes to something called the cloud. So cloud is nothing but a server sitting in someone's data center, right? So it could be a server in the Amazon data center or Microsoft data center or Google's data center. But the purpose is all the data goes there and it's stored over there. And then the data can be analyzed, or you can write some rules or do some computation. And then the result of that could be visualized on an application, which could be on your mobile phone or your web dashboard, or you could use the data to control something, right? So you could send the data or a command back down to a device to control it. So this kind of gives you a high level picture of what IoT is. I think as we discuss more in the webinar, we'll keep coming back to this architecture. But I think for now, you can have this framework in mind, a very simplified framework. The next thing to understand is, why is IoT important, right? So if you boil down, there are some industries I've highlighted on the left-hand side figure. But if you boil down, in all of these industries, there are 3 reasons why people use IoT. So one is to save money or reduce costs. Second is make money, which means using IoT to increase your business or your revenue through offering new products. And the third is to provide some level of comfort, or it might be due to safety reasons or regulations that you might need to use IoT, right? So if we'll go through some use cases, and you'll see that in most cases, it boils down to one of these 3 reasons why people implement IoT. So the next few minutes, I'll quickly give you an idea of what in different industries, how IoT is being used, and what are the various applications. So maybe let me start with agriculture. So in Singapore, we don't have a lot of agriculture. It's a very small city state. But near my office, I observe we have a lot of grass, and there is a sprinkler system which comes on every few hours, irrespective of whether it has rained in the last hour or not. So there are cases when it rains and like 5 minutes later, the sprinkler system turns on. So one, it is a wastage of water. Second, you might even kill the plants over there. Now imagine the same scenario in agriculture, right? Maybe in a park, if a plant dies, you don't care too much. But if you're a farmer and your crop is destroyed because of overwatering, then it can be a serious economic damage to you. So these, by having sensors control when you water your crop, you can not only reduce your costs of water, but also avoid damage to your crop. Uh, Another area is, for example, cattle management. So if you go to Australia or New Zealand, they have a lot of cattle, they have a lot of sheep, and typically all of their cattle assets have trackers on them. So it is, for them, it is very important to track their cattle for many reasons. One, the cattle might run away, that is a loss. But even if your cattle goes into a neighbor's farm and grazes the grass over there, it could be a legal issue, right? So you really want to make sure that you're not intruding into someone else's property. So it could be legal reasons like that where you do this kind of IoT application. There are many other applications in agriculture, and I think the Indian market can benefit a lot uh, 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 by implementing IoT in agriculture. So I won't go through all of this, but I mean, you can do research later on to see how in your area in agriculture you can apply IoT. The other big area, especially in cities, is buildings and facilities management. A few examples of what, for example, even we work on. So most of you are in your home, you must have a water meter and an electricity meter as a minimum. And currently what happens is someone comes, takes a reading, goes back, and then you are sent a bill and you pay for it. But now the trend is all these meters are being replaced by wireless meters. So every few days they will send, or few hours, they will report the reading to a server, and then it can be remotely managed. So there won't be any need for someone to go down and read the meter. So because it's very laborious. So IoT is enabling smart metering. That is the term which we use in the industry. So it is beyond just reading the meter and sending you a bill. By having real-time understanding of consumption of water or energy, you can manage how you distribute energy, how you manage energy, which areas require more. You can detect abnormal situations or leaks, right? So it's not just billing, but also there's a bigger picture around that. So metering is a very, very big use case. Apart from that, I mean, simple examples like monitoring air quality within buildings, right? If you are living in a city like Delhi, where air pollution is very high, you really want to monitor how the air condition is within the area you live in or you work in. And it becomes even more important right now with a situation like COVID, where people's immune systems are impacted. You really need to monitor these kind of parameters. So these are just a couple of examples, but within buildings, there are many things which you can monitor, as you can see on the screen. Looking at a broader, beyond the building, right? In a city or a big facility, there are other assets also which can be monitored. Just to give you a few examples, we do a lot of outdoor lighting monitoring. So for example, you are on university campus, you have a lot of street lights or security lights. And typically there is no way of knowing whether a light is working or not. So what people do is the security guard or someone from the facilities team walks around, checks each light and make sure it's working. So a simple fix could be putting sensors on these lights so that you know which light is working, which is not working without actually going down there, right? So that is a simple example. A couple of other examples in a city's context. You know, the manholes which you see in the street, there are a lot of cases where people steal the manhole covers or open the manhole and illegally dump some chemicals into the sewer system. So there are now solutions where you can put sensors on the manhole, and when someone actually opens a manhole illegally, you can get notified immediately and take action, right? So manhole monitoring is another interesting use case. Other than that, smart dustbins. So currently what happens is the municipality comes and collects trash at a regular interval, right? But they even come when maybe
Hello.
Sorry, I think you lost me in between. Vishnu, can you tell me where did you lose me? Was it on this slide?
Rewind like 2 minutes from what you started.
Was it agriculture?
Yeah, I think not this slide, Deepak. You have to move forward. I think the facility. Yeah, this one.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry
the
guys. I
monitoring.
think I have having some issue with my Wi-Fi. Anyways, yeah. So I was talking about bin monitoring. So you can actually have an automated system where you know when to collect, and you can save on collection costs and like fuel costs of your collection trucks. So these are some of the examples in a wider city context, which are useful. Another big area, and I think this is being emphasized right now a lot, is the healthcare industry. So there are a few cases. For example, our office is near a hospital in Singapore, and we always see people leaving wheelchairs very far away from the hospital, near the bus stop or the train station. And then for the hospital to go down and track these wheelchairs is a big nightmare, and they spend a lot of time and money doing that. So imagine you have tracking devices on these kind of assets. It becomes much easier to manage and find them out, right? So not only physical assets, but even people. A lot of elderly people suffer from memory loss or Alzheimer's. So nowadays there are IoT products like wearables, which you can put on elderly people, and then you can get notified if they're lost or they fall down or they have an emergency situation. Right. Other than that, there are applications around defibrillators, for example, the one you use for CPR. So typically there is a requirement to test them every 4 or 6 months to make sure they work. So right now they actually send down people to do this. But nowadays you have smart defibrillators which can actually send a status update automatically that I'm okay. You don't need to come down and check me. So healthcare, definitely there's a big scope for IoT. Moving on, other cases like very remote areas like forests. I recently came across an interesting startup, I think out of Australia, that was actually monitoring endangered species in forests. And what they did was they were not putting trackers on the animals. They actually had sound sensors or acoustic sensors on the trees, and then based on the how the animal makes the sound, they know which animal it is. So that was a very interesting use case, and I think endangered species tracking is a big application. Apart from that, like we are doing a use case in Singapore where we are working with the Wildlife Reserve Singapore, and we are monitoring the crocodile water tanks and the fish tanks, so for the water level and the water quality. So it is very important to monitor these conditions for the animals in the wildlife.
Deepak, seems like we lost again.
You can't hear me?
No, we can hear. It's okay.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so wildlife or remote monitoring is another use case. You might have assets like solar panels in those remote areas which need to be monitored so that they are performing optimally. So these are some examples. There are many more depending on where you are. But I think the biggest area where IoT is creating an impact is the industrial sector. And I mean, that is the focus of today's discussion, industrial IoT. So in industry, I mean, there are various industries, have manufacturing, transportation, logistics. And I think in every industry, monitoring and tracking of assets is becoming very important for various reasons. So maybe let me give you 2 or 3 quick examples for you to understand. So in my previous life, before I started this company, I was working in the oil and gas sector. And in my last project, we actually lay fiber optic cables all the way from land to the offshore oil platform so that we could have an application of smart helmets. So the idea behind smart helmet is that if there is something wrong with an equipment on an oil platform, you don't need to send an expert from the land to the offshore platform, you can actually guide someone over there using a smart helmet. So it is like Google Glasses a few years ago. So you wear the helmet and then someone remotely tells you exactly what to do and you can do it. So that is an example of remotely operating or helping someone, and a good example of IoT. Another example I recently read was there was a bread manufacturing company, and they had some legal issue with a supermarket where the supermarket said that you are supplying bad bread. So what the bread company did was they had sensors in some of their shipments to track the temperature and humidity of the shipment and see where exactly the goods were getting spoiled. So as it happens, it was the warehouse of the supermarket where this was happening, and they were able to legally fight back and say that no, it was not us, it was your warehouse that was not managing this well. So IoT can be used in those scenarios as well. So there are many others, and we will look at some as we go in the discussion today. So another big area is utilities. So water and energy, right? And I won't delve too much into the applications here because we have a session in the end by Leela talking about applications in the water industry. But just why this is important. Power and water are probably the lifeline of our modern economy. And to manage these resources well is very important. We don't, I think, respect our water resources well enough. And I think we feel that there's a lack of using technology to manage these resources, and that's where we want to contribute. And I think when Leela presents, you'll have an idea of what all areas a utility requires to have these kind of technologies in place. But moving on specifically, I mean, you look at any of these use cases, an IoT device is very important. And what is inside an IoT device? There are three major parts. One is the hardware, right? So you can see the sensors, the microcontrollers, the data storage, there are many things. But what I want to emphasize is on the communication module. So a device which does not have communication module is not an IoT device, right? It is just a smart device. So having a communication module is very important, and that's what we are gonna kind of speak about today. So connectivity in a smart device can be wired or wireless, but I'll talk about wireless and specifically the long range version, right? So you might be familiar with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or Zigbee, some of you. These are short range technologies. What we focus on are long range technologies, which are on your right, and specifically on the top right, which are Sigfox, LTE, LoRa, narrowband IoT. See, these are called low power wide area networks, okay? So what is the difference between this and the other technologies? So these technologies transmit long distances, but consume less battery power. Okay, so that is their key value proposition. So low power, wide area network. So they're good for long range, long battery, they're low cost, but they're not good for high data rate. So it is like your 3G or 4G, you can transmit long distances, but it is very costly and the battery life is not very long as well. Whereas your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, they're short range and the battery life is also not very good. So this is kind of in between, where it gives you long range with long battery life, but the data rate is low, right? So just to give you a feel of where these connectivity technologies are, this is a very growing and new market. And then in the next few years, we are expected to see a boom in these across sectors, as you can see on the screen. But I would like to focus on three technologies specifically, which we work on. So one is Sigfox, second is LoRa, and third is narrowband IoT. So we'll start with Sigfox. So Sigfox is a global network around 50 countries. It is a private network. It's run by a company called Sigfox. So the architecture is very simple. On the very left side, there are smart devices which have a Sigfox chip inside it. And these devices can talk to Sigfox towers, which are near your area, so similar to cellular towers. And then they receive the data from the Sigfox devices and send the data to Sigfox cloud. and from there your software can actually receive the data, right? So the main key points here is that it is a very slow network, 100 bits per second. You can only send very few bytes of data, and only once every 10 minutes, right? So that is kind of what it is. It is useful for a lot of applications, but you cannot use it to stream audio or video or those kind of applications, right? So later on, I think when Anant touches more on the technical side, you'll have a better understanding of this. But moving on, the second popular network is LoRa, which is long range radio. And it is not run by any single company. It is an open standard which anyone can use. You can set up your own LoRa network. Maybe some of you in university are already doing this, where you set your own LoRa network. So the architecture is very similar. On the left side, you have devices which communicate wirelessly to something called a local gateway, which gets the data from the sensor, and then using some kind of Ethernet or 3G backhaul, the data goes to the server, and then you can build your application on top of that. So this is a very, very popular network. It's present in almost 150 countries across the world. And since it's an open standard, you can do a lot with it. I think the last technology I want to talk to you about is narrowband IoT and a related network called LTE-M. So these are run by telcos. Okay, so people like Airtel, Jio, Vodafone. So these people are going to launch this network in India, for example. Right now, it's not there. It is present in other countries, as you can see, but pretty soon it will be available in India. You might have heard about the term 5G going around. So it is actually these will be part of the 5G standard or spec moving forward. So they are going to be around for a long time. So how they work is very similar to your 2G, 3G, 4G. So there will be a SIM card in your device, and then it will transmit the data to the cell tower and then go back to the cloud. But the value proposition is that it consumes less battery, and it can run for a long time on battery when you install it outside, and it costs very less. So it will be around 1/10 the cost of your normal 3G subscription. So for example, in Singapore, it is $10 for 3G. For NB-IoT or LTE, it is $1, right? So it is very cheap as well. So in terms of the difference between NB-IoT and LTE, LTE-M is a bit faster network compared to NB-IoT, and it is good when your sensor is moving. So if your sensor is on a truck or a car and it is moving around a lot, then you go for LTE-M. Otherwise, if it is stationary, most probably you'll go for NB-IoT. Or if you want to send a lot of data, compared to NB-IoT, LTE-M is better in terms of how much data you can send, right? So this is kind of a quick overview. I just want to take a last 5 minutes to explain what we do and how these technologies are used before I hand over to Anant. So we have something called the Remote Eye IoT platform, which is an end-to-end platform. So on the left-hand side, you can see our devices called the RI IoT devices. So these are industrial sensor transmitters, which can connect to any kind of sensor, read the data from the sensor, and transmit the data wirelessly over these Sigfox, NB-IoT, or LTE networks to our software. So our software is called RI IoT Cloud. It is hosted on Amazon Web Services, and then you can do a lot of interesting stuff with it. So just to give you an idea, so this is how it works. On the very left side is your sensor or your machine or your meter or your controller or whatever you want to monitor. And then you wire it up to our device, read what is there, transmit it, receive the data on the cloud. So the cloud helps you in storing the data, analyzing it, building dashboards, maybe send an SMS, WhatsApp, do some machine learning algorithms. So it's a complete platform for you to use for your IoT applications. So yeah, quickly, I mean, this is the hard device, one of the devices which we make for the NB-IoT market. So it's an industry grade, rugged, waterproof device. This is the cloud which we have. So it is a very secure, scalable, and highly available system. So whether it is one device, 10 devices, 1,000 devices, 100,000 devices, it works. So it's designed to be very rugged. You can manage all the hardware which is connected to this platform. You can manage the users, you can build applications, you can, if you want to send the data to other softwares, we have RESTful API. So it is a pretty comprehensive platform for enterprise users. So this is just a quick view. So this is available in 3 formats, the platform. It could be a web platform. You could use it on mobile, or if you want the data to go to your software, you can use our APIs as well. Some quick screenshots of how the system looks. So this is the device management page where you can see all the devices connected to the software. What is the signal strength? What is the battery level? When did you last receive the message? So all these things you have a quick view. Then you can drill down to the data points which are coming. So in this case, we were monitoring current, voltage, and energy from some meters. So all those parameters are available for you to analyze. You can build some quick analytics and dashboards, like what was the energy consumption in the last few days or months or years. So this is a quick view, which is very helpful for operations. Yeah, so this is again managing your devices. So you can do stuff like updating the settings remotely. So without going down to site, you can actually remotely reprogram your device or reset your device or do such functions, right? You can send email, SMS, WhatsApp alerts when something goes wrong, right? You want to know immediately, you can use this. Or you can send a weekly or a monthly report of what is happening with your devices, for example. The best part about this is you can build your own dashboards without knowing how to program, right? So we have a widget-based system. So you can do a graph, or you can do a line chart or table. You can have text. So however you want to visualize your data, it is very easy to use. If you have a moving device, you can build GPS dashboards. Like you can see where all your asset has been moving in the last few hours, for example, right? So that is kind of a quick introduction to low power WAN and what we do and its applications in the various industries. So I think the next session would be where Anant would dive a bit deeper into the technology aspect, and then finally Leela will talk about the applications in water industry. So maybe at this stage, Vishnu, do we want to do a Q&A, or you want to put it to the end? Hello.
Yeah, I think Deepak, Vishnu is not around. Maybe.
Sure. Sure. I think we can do the Q&A in the end. Maybe then maybe Anant, you can continue with your section.
Yeah, you can have a combined Q&A at the last. No problem.
Yeah, we'll do that. I think Anant, you can share your screen now.
Yeah, Vishnu, can you enable the sharing?
Please check. I have enabled the screen share.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, you can see my screen, by the way.
Yeah, it is visible. You're good to go.
Okay. Hi guys. This is Anant, and the agenda for this meeting, or the webinar, is kind of I'll introduce myself, and also I'll again touch upon the wireless protocols, and I'll try to explain in detail, or maybe try to differentiate between the different protocols, and also give you a background about a product development. Maybe imagine a typical product development company. How does the product is derived? And also followed by what are the high-level components in IoT, and why the IoT security is a bit complex, and also what are the high-level security considerations that we have to take when you are deploying an IoT solution or designing an IoT solution. So my name is Anant, as I told, and I lead the technical team at Space Age Labs, and also, I am adjunct faculty in the School of ISS in National University of Singapore. I teach securing IoT networks as an executive education, and I graduated in Masters in Communications Engineering. I have done product developments, especially on wireless technologies, on Wi-Fi, BLE, and from past few years, I'm working on LPWAN segment with Space Age Labs. And also I am a certified wireless security professional. So if we jump to the wireless technologies, the diagram shows that there are like 4 to 5 different types of networks. So proximity networks and personal area networks, local area networks, neighborhood area networks, and wide area networks. So these networks, if you can see, actually those are classified based on the range between the two devices. It could be a router and your mobile, or it could be two devices that are talking. So proximity network is kind of 1 to 10 centimeters. So if the distance between two devices which are communicating is less than 10 centimeters, then those are kind of called proximity networks. And the most prominent use cases are NFC and RFID. So all your payment gateways or your mobile phones have NFC, and it's a proximity network. And the next network is called personal area network, which is kind of range in between 10 to 100 meters. And all your Bluetooth communication, be it legacy Bluetooth or Bluetooth Low Energy or Zigbee or Thread, Z-Wave, there are so many technologies that fall into wireless PAN network as well. And the next one is very promising, and most of us are familiar with it, WLAN, which is all your Wi-Fi standard, be it 2.4 or be it 5 gig or any protocol which is 802.11a to ZIG. All these falls into the wireless LAN network segment. Then the neighborhood area networks is not much popular in day-to-day life, but those are kind of gives a competition to wide area networks as well. And the range is approximately 5 to 10 kilometers between the device and the base station. Then comes to the wireless wide area networks, which is very much prominent in smart city kind of environment, where you have, devices communicating, in between like any range of like 5 to 10 kilometers. So then those are, kind of falls into the wireless wide area networks. And in that one, there is cellular spectrum, which is 2G, 3G, or 5G, whatever the cellular connectivity. Those fall into wide area networks. And also, apart from that, there is a new variant that is coming in called a low power wide area network, which is targeted for the sensor communication, not for day-to-day life for us. So, you cannot use mobile with an LPWAN, but you can use, maybe sensors like temperature sensor or any other, maybe energy monitoring or smart meters. These kind of things can use low power wide area networks. Yeah. So I'll try to, this slide kind of comprehends or maybe confuses you guys as well. The difference between different LPWAN technologies that are available in the world as of now, kind of prominent. Those are, as Deepak mentioned, it's LoRaWAN, Sigfox, and NB-IoT or LTE-M. So the last two networks, LTE-M and NB-IoT, falls into the 4G and 5G standard. So they are very much piggybacking on the existing cellular communication. But those are targeted for kind of a sensor communication. So the range of the range of the devices could be anywhere in between 2 to 5 kilometers. So which means the base station can reside anywhere in between 2 to 5 kilometers of the vicinity, and your sensor will still be able to communicate to the base station and make it cloud connected. And the first, when it comes to the frequency band, the LoRaWAN and Sigfox fall into unlicensed spectrum, which means ISM. I'm not sure you guys are aware, but scientific and medical band, which every country has their own, specific bands allocated to it. And you might hear like 2.4 falls into 2.4 gigahertz fall into a licensed spectrum, and also 433, and then 800 to 900, 920 kind of frequency falls. So every country has their own regulations, and LoRaWAN and Sigfox you write back on the spectrum. So the main thing that you need to understand is cellular communication is, which means when companies like Airtel or Jio, they pay the government to lock or buy the spectrum or the frequency bands. but unlicensed, nobody is maintaining it until, you can use the same spectrum like your Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi can be used, by any public person. And the data rate is it can range anything in between very low 290 or 300 bps to 50k bps for LoRaWAN, and the maximum speed is attained by LTE-M, which is 1 Mbps. That's why the battery performance of the LTE-M is a slightly lesser performance. And also the indoor performance for the devices, almost all are comparable, and LTE-M will have lesser performance because it is using the highest bandwidth. And when it comes to the security, LoRaWAN, Sigfox, they have their own proprietary security, and LTE-M or NB-IoT has they ride on the LTE security itself. Yep. So as now we have understood what IoT means, I would like to also jump or give you a quick overview on how a product development journey happens in a company. So there are 6 stages here you see: ideation, research and feasibility, design and development, quality assurance, manufacturing and certification, maintenance and support. And the typical product development cycle happens anywhere in between 6 to 12 months, depending on the manpower and the complexity of the project. So the first phase is ideation. Ideation means, you have some idea and you want to derive a product out of it. Then that is called the ideation phase. So you know that, I want to develop this. So, and this idea can come from anywhere. So whether, a customer can tell you, or your internal team can suggest that this is a good idea and we can go ahead and monetize it. Then the next one is the marketing and sales team need to validate the business case so that it makes a business sense. So that after deriving the product after 6 to 12 months, it should make sense and it should be sellable in the market. And then next one, once the business case is validated and kind of ideation is done, then the team can focus on research and feasibility. So research and feasibility study includes that, what is the solution that you are trying to offer? How much is the pricing? Is there any competitor in the market? And to do a lot of market study in such a way that, this product is kind of good for market after a year. Then you perform feasibility, technical feasibility, where you will, kind of try to derive simple prototypes based on the knowledge that you have. And also you discuss with the team and come up with the requirements and user stories that the team can work on. Then once the research and feasibility is performed, then the team moves into the device and design and development phase, where there is at least a 2 to 3 months of iteration happen. The people, let's say imagine we are designing a device, then you need to understand what kind of microcontroller need to be used, what is the memory requirement, and what are the sensor interfaces, what is the connectivity. So each and every module is taken, and then development will be done accordingly. And also there will be a unit testing and the reiteration happen so that the quality of the design and development is kind of on par. Then the quality assurance comes, where the quality team, based on requirements or the user stories, they will come up and the quality requirements, and also they kind of prepare the test plans and test cases and execution. Once the tests are concluded, then we are good to go with manufacturing and certification process. So where the manufacturing of the device or hardware, so we need to identify a vendor who can do the manufacturing of the PCB, then box build, the entire design, setting up the assembly line. So you need to liaise with a manufacturing partner and ensure that the product meets the regulations. In the same journey, you will also need to go through the regulatory body to obtain approvals. So imagine you are trying to design a product for Singapore. So you need to identify what are the certification authorities or regulation authorities you need to liaise with and obtain approval of your product or solution. And then going through the journey of testing and making it compatible. Once the solution is rolled out and the customer is using it, then the maintenance support comes into picture, where the device or solution upgrades. Let's say that if we have, if you found some, security issues, or maybe product upgrades, then how we can perform these product upgrades or solution upgrades. And also the periodic review of the solution, whether the solution is, fit for the market in the current segment or not, or how can you improve it. And also the patch management. If there is any security patches, then you will end up fixing it. Yeah. So that is a typical development life cycle that any product development company goes through. And we will jump into the IoT components as Deepak mentioned. So there are three components here in the IoT, where you have on the device side, it could be an end node called like a sensor or water meter, or a device. Maybe it could be edge device, which is consolidating all the wireless communication data and then pushing it. And on the network side, it's more on the connectivity and the network server. And application side, all the cloud infrastructure, the backend infrastructure, or your front-end mobile applications, all these fall into application layer. So there are three components if you broadly classify the IoT architecture. And as you have seen, this architecture involves a lot of disciplines. So somebody is expert in IoT devices, somebody is expert in IoT connectivity. Let's say that, telco providers like Airtel, Jio, or Vodafone, those guys are, the kind of connectivity experts. And cloud, it could be a Google Cloud platform, or it could be an AWS, or it could be other, backend design services. And when it comes to IoT, there is no specific standards have defined, as per now. Currently, there is no, there are some standards which are, evolving. And also when it comes to the security, there are multiple failure points that are, that occurs when you define an end-to-end IoT solution. So the communication originates from the sensor, it goes to the device, and it goes through the connectivity of, maybe it could be a 3G or 4G or Wi-Fi. Then it reaches a base station, and from the base station, it reaches to the cloud, where you have your database and you have your backend containers. And on the front end, finally, the front end is the one which the customer is more worried about. So before the information reaches to the customer, there are a lot of connectivity or the failure points that we need to consider. And as the chain is very big, there are so many parties involved, or companies are involved to enable the end-to-end communication. So that's what the security, for the end-to-end IoT solution is very complex. And also, if you were to go through penetration testing or vulnerability assessment testing, those are very expensive. Each test can cost you anything in between $5,000 to $10,000. So taking all these considerations, these are the high-level considerations that a product development company or a product designer is supposed to consider. So security itself is a continuous process. So you cannot just design the product, say that, okay, I'm done with the security. No, that's not going to happen. While the solution is already deployed and is operational, you have to ensure the security so that any man-in-the-middle attack or those kind of things are not performed. Then security design. While designing the product, there are concepts like security requirements, drafting of the security requirements when the product is in ideation or market research phase, and also threat analysis and risk assessment, so that you will you will kind of undergo that, okay, what are the threats are posed for this end-to-end tool chain, and you will come up with a risk assessment. And once a risk assessment is done, then you will go with, okay, you know that these are the risks. So how do you mitigate, and what is the execution plan, and how are you going to fix it? So those are the things that you have to consider when you are rolling out a solution. And when it comes to IoT itself, there are, as I mentioned, three components: device level, then the connectivity, and the cloud infrastructure. So each one have their own security, things need to be considered. So device level, those devices are going to be sitting in a place for 5 years or 10 years, right? Without even touching it. So how do you ensure if somebody opens the box? So that's the physical security. Then securing PCBs. So how do you secure your PCB? By disabling your, JT debug ports, or securing the firmware. So by disabling the firmware that is, not authenticated. So there are, different concepts to ensure the security as well. And on the connectivity side, we have protocol security, payload security, so that man-in-the-middle attacks or any DDoS attacks, those kind of attacks can be avoided. And when it comes to the cloud infrastructure, there are, already a lot of validated concepts like setting up your own firewalls, HSMs, using HSMs for your, key authentications, and also data encryption at the transit, and also ensure that your data, when it is in the database, it is encrypted. So these are, kind of security considerations that you have to take when you are designing an IoT solution. And also a periodic review of the end-to-end IoT solution, so that your deployed networks are kind of secure. Okay. With that, I would like to conclude my session. And also, before I conclude, I would like to say that we, as a SpaceAge, are looking for interns in 2 areas. One is data science. So data science, we are looking for any person who is experienced in Python, Jupyter Notebooks, and maybe exposure towards Pandas, NumPy, and other visualization tools such as Shapely. And also we are looking for embedded interns who is proficient in C language and kind of good at microcontrollers and its concepts, and a brief knowledge on wireless protocols such as PLE. Thank you, guys. And I would like to pass this to Leela. Leela, can you take over?
Yeah, okay, thank you. You unshare that, right? Yeah, can you see my screen? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So Deepak and Anand have shared the technical background behind IoT and the different technologies involved and how we are using it for different applications. So I will share more about like how we are reimagining operations and maintenance of remote and distributed water assets using IoT, LPWAN networks, and our product. Before that, just introduce about myself. So I did my bachelor's from IIT Guwahati in civil engineering. Then I came to Singapore to do my master's in environmental engineering. After that, I joined Public Utilities Board, Singapore. It's a government company which manages the whole water resources, right from collecting rainwater to treating, supplying water to customers, and then collecting wastewater, recycling, desalination, everything. Anything related to water is managed by that company. So I worked there for 12 years. So I worked in different departments through which I got experience in managing water resources in different areas. Yeah, so we are enabling smart monitoring and management for water assets for so some of the well-known companies in Singapore and few Southeast Asian countries. So we are using our hardware and software to enable this, and we are monitoring about 1,000+ assets for now. Yeah, so IoT is going to have a bigger impact in water industry compared to any other industry. That's because usually water is the most important element for human survival, and water is also the cheapest or low cost industry, because water is usually supplied at a very low rate compared to your other utilities like energy or telecom, or electricity. Usually water is very cheap, so usually the companies and utilities struggle with funding for automation or smart management applications. So the innovation in IoT technology has enabled these companies to automate and then better manage the resources. Like for example, usually utilities, they manage thousands of kilometers of pipeline, or thousands of kilometers of sewers, pump stations, river water, and all this. So most of the time these assets are very distributed. They are very far away. So most of the time these assets are managed through guesswork. So they assume that maybe this pipe might leak or it's old, so then they'll go and maintain. And most of the time you see that there are a lot of surprises. Sometimes there is a leak or some drought or flooding, right? Because right now they don't have enough data about these assets to manage intelligently. So now if we have sensors at different areas or different assets, then you can manage them smartly or efficiently. So world over, there is a $6 billion opportunity by 2025 to modernize these water utility assets. So there are some remote monitoring solutions, like those rich industries or utilities have SCADA applications or automation solutions, but there are some challenges because they are not very cost effective or practical for everybody to implement. Like for example, these are the main challenges why existing solutions are not appropriate for utilities industry. One is there are no full stack solutions. Like there are different customers providing you hardware, there's people providing you software. So for a customer, for them to integrate these solutions and use effectively, they have to again spend a lot of money and resources to do this. So the customer don't see a return of investment. Second is people are still using expensive cellular communications like 3G, 4G. So one is they are expensive. The second is the power consumption. So if you are using normal 3G, 4G, just like your mobile phone, you have to charge very often. So again, your maintenance and operation cost is going to increase. So the customer doesn't see a return of investment. The third is this water industry is a legacy industry. So you have equipment in this industry running for 15 to 20 years. I mean, they're functionally good. So if you buy a new equipment today, you may get some smart features. But what the industry needs is how to retrofit these old equipments and make them smart. So there are not many solutions in the market where they can retrofit the existing equipment. Finally, all the enterprise software that you see in the market are not very system integrator friendly, because usually customers, they usually have requirements where they want to customize according to their needs. So it becomes expensive if you want to customize the existing solutions. So that's why the existing solutions are not practical or cost effective for customers to implement. So that is where we saw there is a gap in the industry, especially in utilities industry. So we have developed this end-to-end solution where Deepak already shared. So as we said, we have this hardware which can connect to different types of sensors, whether it's based on these industrial protocols like Modbus, Pulse, RTD. So this covers almost 80% of the sensors in the market. And we use low power networks, which are like 10 times cheaper, that reduces your operation and maintenance cost by 10 times. And then you send the data to our cloud, where we use advanced data analytics or machine learning to provide actionable insights so that the customer can manage their assets intelligently. Yeah, so as we mentioned, right, because our hardware can connect to different type of sensors and our software can be customized or customizable depending on the application. So the same solution can be used for many applications in the water loop. So you can use the same solution to cover the whole water loop. For example, whether managing river water or river water quality, flooding, to water supply network, leak detection, pump station monitoring, or smart metering. Also, then wastewater collection, monitoring and discharge and recycling and all that. So the same solution can be applied for all your applications in water cycle. So in my next slides, I'll go to some of the applications that we have already deployed. These are actual use cases where our customers are using. Like for example, this is for smart water metering. So this is for a food manufacturing company in Singapore, where they have different processes within a factory. So they want to know each process, which process is most efficient, how much they're consuming water, or if there is any leak when there is no manufacturing. So previously they didn't have visibility on this. Now we have installed our devices. As you can see, the water meter is connected to our device and sending real-time information. So with this, the customer knows in real time, like how his process is doing, how efficient it is, if there is any leak and stuff like that. Yeah. So similarly, this application here we have connected to energy meter. So this is for National University of Singapore. So through this application, we are monitoring about 800 street lights within the campus. So this is how it works. So each of the bus stop has an electrical panel, which is supplying to 40 to 80 street lights. So our device directly connects to the existing energy meter. So we get real-time current consumption and energy consumption. So with this, if there is any fault in the street lights or any of the traffic lights and stuff, so we usually get an alert. previously the customer had to go to site every week. He has to walk around the site to find if there is any faulty equipment. So now with this, he will just get an SMS whenever there is a fault. So this has greatly improved their efficiency in working for facilities management. Yeah. So the next is this is for a theme park in Singapore. So if anybody has been to Singapore, Sentosa is one of the major tourist attraction here. So they have this thing called Adventure Cove, which is a water theme park. So they have an artificial river that flows within the park. So they have a lot of pump sumps, which is pumping water continuously to make it flowing all the time. So there are times where it starts leaking or it becomes faulty and there is a flooding. So previously they have to go manually and check each and every pump sump whether there is any leak or not. So now we have installed 20 of our devices in the theme park. So whenever there is a small leak, they will immediately get an alert. So this will reduce their downtime, also reduce any damage to their equipment. Yeah. So this application, I think Deepak was mentioning about our wildlife reserve is called River Safari, where they have all these exhibits where they have water-based animals like crocodiles, tortoise, fish, and different exotic animals. So we have installed our sensors where it will tell the real time what is the level in the tank, so that they can ensure there is no safety issues or any other issues there. Yeah, so this one we are doing water quality monitoring. So on the left, you can see we are monitoring one of the rivers here where the water treatment plant get water. So this will help them whenever there is a spike in water quality, it will immediately inform them so they can avoid any pollution to their water treatment. The other one on the right side is for illegal discharge, because in Singapore they are very stringent about what factories discharge into the water course or into the sewers, because here Singapore is very advanced and they do a lot of water recycling. So any illegal discharge or toxicity will affect the water treatment. So this one is a sensor. Whenever there is a spike in illegal discharge, it will immediately send them an alert so they can take action. Yeah, so next application is also for sewer, where we have installed sensors for getting real-time information on the sewer level and flow, so that this one will alert in case there is any flooding that's going to happen. Before something happens, this will alert so that people can take action if there is any choke inside the sewer or something. Right? It can preempt. Also, this will also help them in designing proper sewers if there is under capacity or over capacity. So we are also building a sewer analytics management system, an intelligent machine learning model, so that based on the level conditions, it will predict when the next sewer failure might happen. So the next application is for pump condition monitoring. Usually, pump stations or within the factories, many times like the pumps or rotating equipment failure will actually shut down the whole factory and it be a loss. So what we are doing is we are monitoring 3 different parameters, like for example, vibration, temperature, and current consumption. So we are trying to correlate and then predict the failure of the pump so that you maintain before it failures. So this will help them to take preemptive action so that there is no loss or downtime. So we also integrated this to WhatsApp. So basically the machine will WhatsApp you saying that if it's not doing well, it will message you saying that, hey, I'm not doing well, can you come and maintain, stuff like that. So this is more intuitive way of interacting with your assets rather than taking action after its failure. Yeah, so as you can see, right, the same solution can be used for many applications within the water industry or in other heavy industry applications, right? So this way, like for example, a utilities company, when they have so many different types of assets, they don't need to train their staff using different softwares or different applications. So just one software, you train them. So they will also reduce their cost on onboarding solutions or change management within the utilities. Yeah, so that's in summary of what we are doing for the water sector and how it can be utilized efficiently. Yeah, thank you. Vishnu?
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, we're open to Q&As. So people, you can either post in Q&A or post in Zoom chat.
I think I see one question in the Q&A. Maybe I
Yeah.
can answer that.
Mhm.
I think the question says that if you are using any IoT application in between, there is a problem of internet. Is there any alternate to access that application at that time? So I'm not sure exactly what the question meant, but maybe I'll give you an example where, for example, it is a very remote farm, for example, right? And there is no internet over there. You can have a local network like LoRa. So LoRa does not depend on someone providing you a cellular network or Ethernet network or whatever. So you can have a local wireless network, and you can build a local display for all the information coming through that network. So you don't even need to send it to the internet. Um, the other way could be, if there is no internet, there are options like satellite backhaul. So if normal your the telco is not providing you internet connection, then you can use satellite communication to send the data back to the internet. So this happens a lot in, for example, oil and gas industries or mining, where it is very remote and there is no 4G or 5G or whatever. So then you can use satellite communication to send the data to your data center or to your software. So these are the two ways. So one way is you can have a local application system, or if you really need to send it back, then you use satellite kind of communications.
Sorry, Deepak. Maybe I think what the question says that in between there is a wireless connection problem or something, right? So how do you overcome? So I think one thing that we have innovated on our product, we have a local data logging where in case of network failure, we have a inbuilt memory inside the device which will start storing the data. And once the network or the connection comes back, then the device will push all the historical data or the data that was logged. So that way you don't miss out any data if there is a network failure. Yeah. Hope that answers the question.
I think there's a second question, Anant, you might want to take. What is the link between cloud computing and IoT?
I think this is a very broad question, I would say. Cloud computing link with IoT in this management is all the data is, looking at the existing solutions, all the data is coming into the cloud, and definitely cloud computing is kind of needed, and without which you cannot, bring it onto the internet. So when the IoT term is derived, which means that most of the computing happens in the cloud. So yeah, it has to be there. Yeah. Then there is one more question. I hope that I think the previous question is kind of answered, I feel. Moving to the next question, the research topic in the field of IoT or IIoT. I feel that I was approached by one of the previous researcher who was kind of came to me with a problem statement where the existing all the data that is coming from the IoT devices are being computed or measured or converted or transformed. All these things are happening on the cloud itself. And we use heavily on what you call cloud containers or Kubernetes kind of stuff. But how do we bring this kind of analytics at the edge level? Or means by maybe bringing the concept of containerization at the edge level. Those kind of things could be a very good research topic to go with. So that how do you reduce the traffic towards the cloud and taking the innovative decisions on the edge node itself?
Yeah, I think I have another area, I think, where a lot of people are doing a lot of research, which is battery management, right? So because when you have these devices in the field, you would want them to last very long in the field. So how can we reduce energy consumption in electronic circuits? Second, is there any improvement in battery technology that we can do? I think if we can crack this energy problem for these devices, I think that would also be very revolutionary. There is some work going around wireless power transfer as well in this, but if fundamentally we can change how we consume power in these devices, I think that would be a great application. Yeah. And there is another area where a lot of research is going on, is in storage, because a lot of data is being generated because of IoT. So you really need to we need to see how we cannot keep on building data centers, right? Like if every car, every thing is connected to the internet, you're generating, I don't know, petabytes of data every hour around the world. So where are we going to store all this? So there is a lot of research going on in using DNA storage, because DNA storage can store a lot of information in very small space. So if someone is from life sciences or wants to explore DNA storage, I think that is another area which would impact IoT a lot. Yeah.
I think there is one question on the webinar chat, which is on the reverse. Leela, can you comment on that?
Yeah. So definitely, I think IoT will play an important role, because right now, one is you have water, and the other is the water is not usable. Like for example, if you see Ganga water, right? So there's a lot of pollution. Even though you have a lot of water, you don't know. So using sensors, you can monitor both water level, also water quality. So that will give you like what is the health of your rivers. So that will help you manage. Many times these rivers are all very remote, like the source of river is very, very far away from where you consume water. So if you have sensors along the way along the river, right? So then you know like what is polluting, why is it getting polluted? So then you can take action properly. Maybe along the way there is a factory which is discharging water. So then you know where is the point where it is getting polluted. So then you can take action appropriately. So right now we don't have such information. So you don't know who is polluting. So you cannot. So what you can't measure, you cannot manage. So that is where IoT helps. IoT will help you to measure so that you can take manageable actions.
Yeah, and there is one more question on better LPWAN tech for rapid prototypes. Deepak, you want to address or you want me to answer?
Yeah, maybe I can address first. I think since I think most of you are in India right now, and there is, I think, not very good availability of Sigfox network or NB-IoT yet, I would recommend going with LoRa, because LoRa, you can set up your own network. So if in the three networks which we discuss, I feel that LoRa would be good. I think there are a lot of Arduino-based LoRa shields available. If you're into that, I think you can get you can get a LoRa base station and some LoRa devices, and you can start developing that. So I think you could start there. In terms of hardware, I mean, that's what I feel would be easy for you. Anand, if you want to add something.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Sorry to interrupt. People have launched the feedback poll, so please give your feedback, and please do keep the questions coming. So we're going to take for 10 more minutes, and yeah, back to you guys.
Yep, I think that's a best idea as well. Yeah, LoRa. I mean, you can be independent, and I mean, you don't need to request a SIM card from the carrier provider and then wait for the SIM card to be delivered. And I mean, you need to also ensure the connectivity is there in your area. So there are a lot of ifs and buts in both in Sigfox or LTE, CAT-M or NB-IoT networks. So LoRa is preferred, and also LoRa is preferred. Why? Because you also will get to understand about the base stations or how the base stations are designed as well. At least a high-level understanding you will, I mean, see. So the end-to-end IoT solution tool chain you can establish.
I think there's a question on the career opportunity in the near future. I think our presentation speaks for itself. You have seen there are so many industries in which IoT will create an impact, and there will be demand on both sides. One on the vendor side, so companies which are making IoT products or IoT platforms. So there is a big demand for engineering talent over there. But there is also a need on the customer side, right? Say in a water company or an energy company or a manufacturing company to integrate these technologies into those processes. So I think there will be a huge, and IoT is such a big space, like everything from connected cars to drones to the wireless sensors, which we talked about, everything falls under IoT. So I think this is, I mean, if you're looking to get into a field, I would say, go into IoT, but maybe pick a vertical or a technology where you want to focus on for a few years. I think that would be the way to go. Yeah, if Leela or Anant, you have any idea, I mean, comments on this, you can.
No, I think I'm good. There is one more question on upcoming AI and ML. Will there be a decline in IoT tech, or can you relate AI and IoT? So maybe I'll try to answer. AI and ML are kind of, I mean, it rides on IoT. IoT is more of an enabler. So AI and ML or those kind of solutions will work properly when you have the data collection. So IoT will enable the data collection platform, or it enables all the aggregation of the data. And then where your AI or ML can pick it up and then process it and derive the respective results or analytics also, or maybe predict in the future. So IoT is more kind of enablement for the AI and ML technology. So it has to go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think for them to understand, right? So AI and ML is a part of IoT. So IoT is a bigger umbrella. In the IoT, you have hardware and software. So the hardware is the sensors and devices, and whereas the software is where your AI and machine learning comes. So they are part of IoT. It's not like they're two different things. Yeah.
Yep. Deepak, there are more questions coming in. So
I think there's a couple of water-related questions. One is, can we use this technology for wastewater treatment? Was one, and then how can we access data from sensors for water leakages at remote area where no internet is available?
Yeah, so as you can see, right, in my in the applications I've shared, there are two applications I've shared for wastewater, right, where you are measuring the level and flow of wastewater within the sewer, and also, so same way for wastewater treatment, yeah, definitely it can be used, because you want to know what is the water quality that is coming into wastewater, what is the treated water that is going out, also what are the different. So yeah, definitely this technology can be used for wastewater treatment. The second
I think another, sorry, just to add, within the wastewater plant itself, right, there might be equipment, apart from the water, the process itself, the equipment also can be monitored for their conditions. I think, which Leela talked about, vibration, energy consumption, because if some equipment is down, then your ability to treat wastewater also goes down. So I think wherever there are assets, I think definitely there is scope for that. Yeah. Go ahead, Leela.
Yeah, for say, how can we access data from sensors from water leakages at remote areas where no internet is available? How can you use IoT in non? Yeah, so definitely, I think for remote monitoring, you need some way to get the data to internet. So one way everybody figures is to connect to internet is either Wi-Fi or cellular network. So that is where we have shared, right? There are other alternative networks like LoRaWAN, where you can set up your own network, or Sigfox. So these are alternate networks where you enable these sensors to send data to your cloud, so you can do remote monitoring. Otherwise, you cannot.
Yeah, I think LoRa do not require an internet capability, so it can be a standalone system. So you can have your own base station and access internally. You don't need internet to be, I mean, available for LoRa. Okay,
I think there's one question on as a company you have deployed a lot of projects. What issues do you face in the field? I think Leela, you can answer this. Issues on the field.
Yeah, so the issues mainly is the site conditions, right? Sometimes different sites have different. Some are like hazardous conditions. Some are So usually you should understand the site condition before you go and install. Yeah, so sometimes you have network failure and stuff. So that is where we have innovated. Initially, when we designed our device, we didn't have a logging capability. So after that, we learned that, okay, sometimes there is an issue of network failure. So that is why now we have inbuilt device memory, so that this can be overcome. And sometimes it's also the power issue. So we also have a backup power. So there is a backup battery in case of power failure, your device will still function. Yeah. So those are the main challenges that we have.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there are very unique challenges, like there might be animals or rats which will come and try to eat your sensor. I mean, or someone might want to steal your sensor. There are these kind of issues as well sometimes. I think we had an issue where ants were entering one of our device when we installed it on site. So I think you can have such issues as well. So yeah, I mean, in deployment, there are numerous challenges depending on where you do it and what is the existing system there. So I think every project is unique. But yeah, overall, there are issues around power supply and network availability, which we keep seeing again and again. I think there's one question, I think Anant, you can answer this. What is the fundamental difference between IoT and wireless sensor networks?
I would say that wireless sensor networks are part of IoT. IoT is a broad term, I would say. So IoT is a consolidation of the device, network, connectivity, and the cloud infrastructure. The entire solution is kind of called as IoT. And wireless sensor network is typically on the device level. How do you route the data between the device and the router or the base stations? So I feel that wireless sensor network is kind of part of the IoT food chain. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one question: can it be used in water? I'm guessing the question is, can we put the device inside water?
Definitely. I think so. Yeah. It depends on the kind of enclosure that you use, right? So, for example, for the sewer, we are using IP68 enclosure where your device can be submerged up to 3 meters. So it depends on the design of the enclosure and stuff. So that is why different site condition calls for different types of design. So yeah, you can use in the water, but wireless network won't be able to pass through the water. So you need to have cables, right? You have a sensor inside, but it has to be connected to your gateway through cable or something.
Yeah, so the antenna might be outside.
Yeah, so your antenna should be out so that you get the signal out. Yeah.
Can you, so there's a question, can you give any suggestion how to pursue a career in IoT? You might want to start with an internship. That is my response. To get an idea. If you have done some projects already, that would be great. But yeah, I think as Anant mentioned, we are looking for interns as well. So if you are looking for real experience, then I mean, that would be great. And I'm sure there are a lot of companies in India as well who are looking to recruit people into this space. So you might want to choose which specialty you want to go into, whether you want to go into the hardware side of things or software or network. What is your interest? Anand, there is a question: can we operate IoT using Bluetooth instead of cables or wires?
Yes, you can. I mean, it depends on, the sensor connectivity. So if the sensor is already enabled with Bluetooth, and you can use Bluetooth as well. So it really depends on the use case that you are targeting or the customer wants to pursue. So if there is already a Bluetooth deployment, then you can just go ahead and use. But our device is not capable for now. Yeah. But I mean, if you want to design in an IoT application using Bluetooth, yes, you can go ahead.
I think there's a question about how to apply for internship. I think.
Yeah, I think I haven't created a link, but I will. Work with. SmartBridge, and I'll create a internship in
the process. People can always definitely get in touch with us, and we can create a platform where you can apply for the internships. So that's not an issue. And also the current recording of the session will be uploaded on a YouTube channel, and the further communication will be done to your email IDs, to respect to email IDs. So I think we can wrap the session now. I think there's no more pending questions, anything. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you all.
guys who have tuned in, and especially a huge thanks for the team from Spaces Labs to take the time out and to give us this exciting interactive session. And I hope we'll can build on this and can do many more sessions like this. And definitely, I hope the audience have enjoyed this session. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, guys.
I think one last question somebody asked, right? Do Spaces Labs have presence in India? Yes, we have an office in Hyderabad. So, yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for hosting this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, guys.
Yeah, bye.